1, 2, 3.
Eric,
Hot start.
I didn't tell you this. So before we started this, because we've got coffee, we drink water, we drink all morning. So a lot of times in here, we're both hoping this ends so we can go pee.
Yeah.
So we went for, I got the beet juice and amino acids today.
Yep.
And a coffee. You got a coffee. You got the same thing going on over there.
Yep.
So before we got on, we went downstairs to go pee, and one of the rink guys was down there. So when I went to get the coffees, he looked at me. It's just funny, like the dead conversations we have. He looks at me, and goes, "Do you need a no? Do you have a deep fryer at home?" I go, "No."
Like serious question?
Yeah, and then he stares at me. I go, "Why?" He goes, "Oh, because I'm supposed to throw out all the French fries." I'm like, "Oh." He goes, "You don't have them at home?" I'm like, "No, it's not a staple." So anyways, it was like 5 minutes of just talking about French fries.
Painful conversation.
Ooh, God,
Yeah,
God. That's why I have an escape clause for everything.
Yeah,
Gotta go.
Man, I'm fired up for today, though.
Today's going to be awesome.
I was listening to, while I was setting up here, In the Dark by Billy Squire, getting fired up. And our topic is sick today.
It is. So I'm excited. It just happened the other day.
Yeah.
So what happened the other day was Eric got a couple comments, or was that what it was? Comments or questions asking.
I had one question.
Yeah. So I took one of them
Yeah.
that we're going to address a little bit today. We're going to do a whole hour on it, but I don't think it necessarily needs an hour. We'll get the gist of it. And if it's, maybe we can go heavier on it another time. But then the next part of it is going to be the interview process for hockey players, because I just did this. So I'll explain that in a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
So glasses, drum roll, the comment, and I put in shorter version, is they asked us outside of hockey. So this person plays for, am I allowed to say where?
No, just
Okay. Plays junior hockey out west in Western Canada, and he asked, what are healthy habits outside of hockey that hockey players should pursue, and because if you're always doing something at the rink or at the gym, to prevent burnout. And I thought that was a very good question. We could go on this for a long, long time, but don't necessarily have to. So when I thought about that, I'm like, I didn't know if it was. I don't know when he first asked the question. I didn't know if it was if you're asking it like, because we were presenting it like all you ever do is all you should ever do is just hockey and stuff.
Yeah,
but
he was just kind of curious.
Yeah.
It was a genuine question. Like, hey,
yeah,
outside of hockey, like it'd be cool to hear you guys talk about. That's kind of what he was saying. So.
Yeah. So obviously, it could come across that if you want to do something well in your life, you have to commit to it 100%, and that's a message basically that we send out there for sure. But the bottom line is that you can't do anything well if you do. That's all you ever do, and that's all you ever think about. Now, so what I would say to that question is, like, as far as what hobbies, anything. I mean, but I guess the question is like, it starts with why, and why are you asking that question, or why are you having a problem with it, or do you find you can't decompress? And the next question I think might be how serious you are in hockey, because that's actually important to answer this question.
Yeah, that's like I would say that's the most important thing to answer, is if you're super serious about hockey, you're going to answer this question one way. If you're not so serious, you're going to answer it a different way. Yeah. Right. So assuming for our audience, these are people that are taking hockey mostly serious, or as serious as they should to move to some kind of next level, then we're obviously going to be answering in that kind of with that framing. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. I'm looking at it like you want to be a professional, or you want to get your schooling paid for somehow. So that takes a different commitment. So based on your commitment is going to be how much time you're going to focus on making sure that you're getting better and focused on hockey. But so my next thing, well, I'm not going to go to the next thing yet. So I would look at it and say, well, you can do anything. I mean, obviously, if you're training really hard and you're focused on being a hockey player, your downtime, it would be very counterproductive to go out there and just get smashed on a Friday night. Your downtime is totally destroying your body.
Yeah, drinking with your buddies is not a good hobby.
It's not the best hobby. Yeah. And will it happen? Yeah, probably. But if you're looking at being very serious and you need downtime, your downtime should be to recover and to decompress and to actually relax and enjoy the day. So my theory on this, and I would use this for anything, is the main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing. So what I simply mean by that is that if your goal is to have your hockey paid for at the NHL, whatever that final goal is that you're shooting for, that's your main thing. And the main thing is to keep that the main thing. So what you need to do is you schedule your workouts and your training and your like whatever it is that is making you a better player, you schedule that in, and that should be the bulk of your spare time for the most part. But of course you need time to decompress. So maybe during the week you can say it's Saturdays or it's Sundays that I'm going to take a day to do absolutely nothing, or to do something that I enjoy, or maybe it's 2 days, whatever that is to you, it doesn't matter. But it's to take that time and to enjoy it. What can you do? Well, I mean, golfing sounds great. Fishing sounds great. Hanging out with your family sounds great. If you like to bowl, I don't care. Gardening, I don't know. Yeah. But the point is to take your downtime and make it downtime. Right. Like even when we look at we've talked about the Whoops several times. Yeah. There's a point where you when you're on the gas pedal all the time, like basically you run out of gas, and you have to put the gas back into the tank. So it's actually really important, and with the data right in front of us every day, it's like it shows you like, and it's so worth it to take the time to recover. So what recovering just simply means is lay off your intense workouts and stuff, but it's also to give your mind a break, because there's a stress level that comes with always pursuing a goal every minute of the day. So I would say find something that you enjoy, but now the next most important thing is keeping the main thing is do whatever you're doing at 100% or as close to it as you can. So it's like the book, The Power of Now, being present. It's mental toughness 101, right? Is when you are working out and those scheduled times, make sure you're dialed in to work out and give it like 100%. Because the thing is that if you always on the gas pedal, then your workouts won't be 100%. Right? Yeah, huge. And if you're always thinking about your next time to relax, you're going to take it out on your workouts or maybe somewhere else. Right. And then if you're not smart enough to take the time to actually recover, then you're thinking about, I should have worked out harder, I'm missing out on something. So if you can compartmentalize what's important, so the main thing being your workouts, your training, and whatever, your mind stuff, your recovery, all that kind of stuff, you schedule that in, you give it 100%. And if you give it 100%, then there's no need to really worry about it after, right? If you allocate 2 hours a day or an hour a day to your workouts, after that, recover and do something like healthy that's going to be not counterproductive to your goals. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. The way that I think about this question, first, I was having a conversation the other day, and it was kind of about on the topic of balance, like having a balanced life sort of thing. And what I was saying to this person I was talking to is, when you're pursuing something like this, you actually can't afford to have balance. Like right. you want it, like you want to be a well-rounded person, you want to have a balanced life, and those things are it's true that in terms of life, that's what you want. But for hockey, it's not necessarily okay to keep things balanced in terms of like balancing your social life and your athletic life and your whatever else you're trying to balance. You need to be 100% committed to this one thing, like you said. So it's going to be always unbalanced in favor of whatever the goal is. So if hockey is the goal to be that good, it has to be unbalanced towards hockey. Yep. So with that context in mind, if you're going to do things outside of hockey, have hobbies and whatever, which you should, because that's good, you're always going to still keep it in the context of hockey, even though, or whatever the goal is, even though you're doing something else that's not hockey. So when you're taking your day off, like you said, that doesn't mean my day off I'm going to do like go get smashed with my buddies, or I'm going to stay up till 4 and play video games because it's my day off, or I'm just going to eat all the junk I want because it's my day off, or those things. You can do that, but it's those things they're just not still steering you in the direction of your goals. Yeah. So when you're talking about having other hobbies, you still want them to be in some sense keeping you on the tracks with what the goal is. So then in terms of what your hobby is, it could be literally anything that the way that I would think about it is anything that you actually find enjoyable to do outside of hockey. So for me personally, I like playing guitar. and I like singing a little, like because my family's super musical. We all do that. And those are things that I just enjoy doing. I like messing around, and it's not like I'm really good or anything. So,
but it's enjoyable.
It's enjoyable. I enjoy it. And when I do it, I get lost in it. It's like I could just do it for a long time, and time just whips by.
Yeah.
And that's totally outside of hockey, and I'm not doing anything detrimental to that goal of excelling in hockey, because I was still doing this while I was playing too.
Yeah.
Another thing, like something my mom likes doing, which is totally fine, is she drawing, if that's something you find enjoyable. Go play golf. I know Charlie likes golfing. I'm not I like going golfing because the experience is fun, but I wouldn't like go golfing because I enjoy going golfing on my own.
Yeah.
But whatever the hobby is, like you said, you could do literally anything that you find enjoyable that you can get lost in. And I would say something that you could do by yourself or with somebody else is a good way to judge that, 100%. Right? So if you can do it on your own, or you could do it in a group, either way, like those are two good hobbies, because then we're talking about, spending time with people that are on the same page as you. You could get a group together and do that activity that maybe aren't necessarily on the same page as you, like school friends or whatever, but you're not doing something like staying up till 4 a.m. or whatever that's away from the goal that you have.
Yeah.
So like you were saying, you can frame it, do whatever you like, but always have it framed in the context of don't derail yourself by having this other hobby that's not necessarily conducive to the one goal that you do have. And then one other thing before I throw it back to you, we went, because you were talking about be like 100% into the thing you're doing. And we went to my 1 year for playing for the university. We went to Boston, and we actually played Harvard for a preseason game. And we went and saw the Bruins arena, and one of the strength coaches kind of gave us a tour of the rink. And one thing he said when we were talking to us, I forget what the context of the conversation was, but he said this thing and it just stuck in my head. What he says, it kind of goes with the power of now thing, is be where your feet are.
Yeah, that's a good statement.
So it's a great statement. So whatever it is that you do, like you were saying, be present in what you're doing. Forget about the hockey. And that doesn't mean make dumb decisions. It just means get lost in the thing you're doing so that your mind goes away from it, and then you can come back to it. Because I do think that is a healthy part of developing yourself as an athlete.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a million healthy things. For me personally, I love to read. I can get lost like on a day off. I sit there and drink a bunch of coffees and read and learn a little bit. That might not sound very exciting to someone, but for me, it's almost everything. I really enjoy just sitting around with my family, and like we joke all the time. So I love just horsing around, just laughing. It's just quality time with my family. I love being on the barbecue. Don't like doing yard work. I move enough during the week, but sometimes I like just going for a nice light walk with my family and just spending the day and enjoying it. And the thing is that you can really get caught up, and I know this because I've done it through hockey, I've done it through my business, where you get so wound up about performing and getting results that when you are spending time, as you said, be where your feet are, you're not being where your feet are, and you're not present with the people that matter with you, or you're not enjoying your time because you're thinking about the other thing. And when you're doing that, it just creates more stress because you didn't have any relief. So I would encourage you, it's a great question, and there's some ideas for you, I guess, but the most important thing is do your work 100%. And like you say, time management, there's a lot more time than you actually think.
Yeah, tons. So, and the last thing I want to say on that is because something that I kind of missed, and I know Dalton has said this a lot too, and you know this for sure, is going after something as rare as being a, elite, whatever, athlete. You're going to be a musician, really high-end scientist, whatever. It can be very isolating because there's not a lot of people that are going to go on that track. Just statistically, it's not the case. People don't go after these things. So you're going to be very isolated. So when you're outside of that activity, try to enjoy the people around you, assuming you have a good group of people that, that you really care about, to care about you and whatever. Just enjoy your time, spending time with those people. Like, don't take that stuff for granted, because especially as you get to higher levels where it becomes more and more demanding and you have to make more and more sacrifices, that time is going to be very valuable to be able to spend with, whether it's your family or really close friends or whatever. Just enjoy that time with those people, doing whatever the activity is you're doing outside of hockey. Yeah.
Well, I was thinking actually when I was driving in today, when I was thinking about this, I was thinking about someone you know very well. Used to train with me, played in the NHL. Went to Finland, Sweden. Okay, you know who I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so he played in the NHL, and he had 3-4 quality years. And he's a truck. He used to just hammer guys, a highlight reel for hitting people. And but his problem was he never kept the main thing. So in the years that he played, he can get away with it a bit, but he always show up to camp a little bit out of shape and a little not really dialed in. So he loved golf so much that he would, like, I guess we can say he got leaky or he just didn't pay attention to it. He would spend all his time golfing and at the expense of working out and doing his job. So it cost him money. Didn't really seem to bother him that much because he turned out okay. But it cost his career huge and injuries and stuff because he just didn't take care of himself because he was too busy or he found his hobby to be more important. And the thing is that you have to pay a price to be able to play later. And what he wanted to do is he made it and made some good money, but he wanted to play and perform, and it doesn't work that way. So that's one that hit me. Like when I was driving in this morning, I go, geez, there's one I couldn't make a clearer picture than that. Yeah. Like literally, hey Andy, I'll be at the skate tomorrow. Okay, great. And then either text or not text and say, I went golfing. And it's like, wow, millions of dollars. Yeah. And to go golf. He could do that every single day of his life. Right. If he just dialed in a little bit more.
Well, and to be clear, like that's fine, but this was a part of that conversation I was having the other day too. Is like that's fine if you want to do that, but you need to understand the consequences of that. Yeah. So if you, like I said, you can't have balance. It has to be unbalanced in favor of the goal at all times. Yeah. Because it's too difficult, right? Yeah. It's too difficult of a thing to do. So if you're going to do something like that, where you're going to sacrifice your workouts, your skates, your whatever, then you just have to deal with what those consequences are.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. Keep the main thing. Yeah. If your main thing is to have a lot of fun and golf or have a lot of fun and your work is secondary, then have expectations that are less. But if you dial it in and you enjoy your time doing your hobby, then it works out.
Yeah, for sure. Hopefully that answers the question.
I hope so.
I think it does. So
I think it's good.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, there's no right answer. I mean, I can't tell someone what they should do for their hobby. Yeah. But I appreciate the question though, because that's probably someone 16 to 18 years old that's asking, that's probably serious about life and is wondering if I'm going to get burnt out. Oh, and by the way, you don't get burnt out on things that you love if you manage it properly. Because you love what you're doing, so it's actually very hard to get burnt out. You get burnt out when other people are pushing you to do things. You get burnt out when it's not maybe your passion. Now it's just a whole bunch of work. But if you like the process and you like where you're going, and it's more enjoyable than a lot of things, then you don't get burnt out. Yeah, but you get burnt out by the stress and not taking the recovery.
Well, and real quick too, if he is asking the question in terms of, well, what if I'm talking about hobbies that specifically will help hockey outside of hockey, if that makes sense?
Yeah.
Then we've answered that a million times. We're talking about things like reading, things like working on like mobility, stretching, maybe take up some yoga. That's a good hobby. But things like that where you're indirectly either sharpening your brain or sharpening your body in a lighter way without actually doing things that are hockey specific on the ice, whatever. So that's an easier question to answer. You're just doing whatever you need to do to make sure your mind is sharp, your body's sharp, and those can be the hobbies that you choose if that's the way you were asking the question.
Yeah. But, yeah, cool. So that's that.
Yep.
So am I starting this next part or you?
I think, you know what? I'll start it because it's so interesting because we had a couple of the kids. They're coming up to we've been talking a lot about the OHL draft the last few weeks because it's coming up. I still don't know if they've set a date for it or not this year.
They're saying June sometime.
Yeah,
but they're doing interviews. So.
Yeah, so they are doing interviews now. So we got some guys that are getting interviews and their teams are reaching out to them. And it's really interesting to see that because they're young, and we say this all the time, they're judged super young. This is what's happening, and it's coming, and it's starting for these kids now. And for some of them, they're starting to get the realization that it's really nerve-wracking to have to talk to a scout, a GM, a coach, and a lot of them haven't been in this situation before. They haven't been asked these questions before. So it doesn't even, we talked about in a previous podcast where you said you don't know what you don't know. And some of these kids have never even been asked some of these questions that you would think are just basic questions, and because they are, but they've just never been asked. So they don't know how to prepare to deal with a grown man or a adult talking to them and asking them questions about themselves where they have to be introspective and analyze,
articulate it.
Yeah, and then analyze it, understand like what their answer is, and then say it in a way that makes sense and is conversational. it's like very apparent that they've never been exposed to this, and no one's telling them that this is going to happen. No one is like prepping them for these types of things. So with the last few weeks, some guys, Charlie's had a couple other guys have had some, and it's just something we're hoping that with this information that we give today, it'll help to prepare some of the kids and parents and coaches for how to help their players with dealing with this stuff, because it's like being in grade school and going to give your first speech.
Yeah.
Like terrifying.
Yeah.
Terrifying.
Yeah.
Except now there's more on the line. So it's a really interesting topic. So I know the kids came in and you were helping one of the kids yesterday with it, and I just think it's a really good thing to make sure that we at least try to give some of that information out to get the kids ready for it.
Yeah. So it's something that I didn't really put a lot of thought in until my son. I mean, this is what's really neat, man. Like I said before, I got hockey dad, hockey coach, hockey trainer, hockey player. The only thing, I'm not a hockey mom.
Yeah.
Although sometimes maybe. Yeah. But it was my son going through it, and when he started getting calls to get interviews, and now it's video interviews, and right, it's like, oh, Charlie, I don't know if like, fortunately for this kid, like he's grown up around the game, so he's a little bit more seasoned and grizzled than a lot of the 16-year-olds out there. But I can't actually imagine how difficult that process is for some kids, and how difficult it is for the interviewer of a team asking these questions, because it's freaking hard.
Yeah.
So when Charlie got asked for his first interview, I sat there and I said, hey, dude, we need to sit down for a minute. This thing is a skill just like stick handling and just like skating. A bad interview could actually take your stock from pretty good to, if you're a great hockey player, I mean, okay, let me make something clear.
I was just gonna jump in and say exactly what you're about to say.
Yeah, like if you're a good hockey player, like if you're just so good, your interview may not matter as much, but it could. I mean, it's something that you don't want to have. But I got to be honest, the GMs and the scouts that have interviewed my son, they've been actually very, they respect the fact that this is maybe their first interview and 16 years old. So there's a little bit of velvet on the sledgehammer, kinda.
Yeah. Where
it could be a lot tougher. But anyways, when Charlie was going through his first one, I said, we need to sit down, son. I said, you're going to have to know some basic things about you, and you're going to have to articulate some answers.
Yeah, know things about yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And about where you want to be and stuff. So, and I said, you're going to be under pressure here. And I said, I don't want to make this bigger than what it is, because then you're putting unnecessary pressure. But you have to ask questions. So we spent time, and Charlie got pissed at me one day because I did it in front of his girlfriend, my mom, at a restaurant, and he was kind of pissed at me. So I lost it on myself. Do it yourself then. That's what I said. I'm like, nice dad. Yeah. But and then I went up to him after and said, listen, sorry, I understand the circumstances. But anyways, I wanted him to succeed. That's all. I just didn't want him to look like an idiot and ruin a chance somewhere. So he spent some time answering basic questions, and I said, this is why it was always important, Charlie, when I told you that English, when you write an answer, not just to put 2-word answers or whatever. You have to express yourself, because one day you're going to have to, and here it is. So anyways, his first interview, I was with him, and we were on the phone, and it went fairly good, especially being his first one. It was actually pretty good, but we spent some time. And I know something about hockey. Like, I have ideas of what they're going to ask, because been there, done that, and I understand the game. I can't imagine with people that aren't playing the game, a kid getting interviewed, like, an interview, like they have no idea. Yeah. So I did that with Charlie. Now he's gone through so many now that it's like no problem. But you got to put this, before I go into anything about the interview process, you've got to think about this. You've got a 16, 15-year-old kids getting an interview by someone that might have played 1,000 games in the NHL, that their face looks like they did a 100-meter dash in an 80-meter gym. Yeah. And they have no expression. Like, the hockey coach face, like, man, how's it going?
Yeah, nose has been broken 10 times.
Just tell the funniest thing ever, and they're just going,
yeah.
Right? Which is, whereas mom and dad, you like to have some inflection in your voice, like normal, like a caring person, and sometimes that doesn't come across.
Yep.
So Charlie had one where he goes, Dad. So this is basically why I said that, because this is one of his. He had like such a respected man in hockey interviewing him. He was just staring at him like, well, tell your parents. He'd say something, and it was like, so he goes, Dad? Because I had pit stains down to my pit stains down to my hips. He goes, I was so nervous.
Of course.
But he did really well.
Yeah.
And they even told me, said, you did a really good interview. So anyways, I was going to say that. Do you think that's not intimidating? When your dad goes, I'm going to come up with a name. Let's say it's Wayne Gretzky, because I don't want to use names that Charlie's had. Let's say it's a big name like Wayne Gretzky or Brendan Shanahan is on the other side, and you go, he's in the Hall of Fame, or this guy played 1,000 games. He's asked me questions about hockey. If I answer it wrong, what's he going to think? If I say something stupid, is he going to tell me that I'm stupid? Like, right? So anyways, these guys did a pretty good job.
Yeah. Well, the thing I was thinking of while you were talking there is for a lot of these kids, like you said at the start, the people doing the interview know, or at least they should know, that this is a young kid, probably first interview, first couple interviews, they're 15, they're not grown-ups and all of that. And because of that, how much better would it be being the 15-year-old that can go in there and have like a mature conversation with a grown-up? And that's kind of the point, is you can use these opportunities where you're getting an interview to separate yourself, right? So now if it's the difference between you and this other guy, and they're looking for a right-handed defenseman, and they got two guys that are great, but then you had a really good interview where they talked to you and they liked you and you guys had some chemistry and the conversation was flowing and it wasn't super awkward and weird, and you gave really like well-articulated answers, even if they're not the best answers ever, just like being able to give a good answer or what sounds like a good answer, then your stock could have just went up instead of
1,000%.
And like you said, you could use it for helping to raise your stock, or it'll drop your stock.
Yeah.
And if you go in there and you can't answer, like I think I've said this before, but we had a kid come in. I was giving one of the kids shit in the gym a few weeks ago because he came in. I would ask him like how he's doing every day, like, hey, how you feeling today? Like what's going on, whatever, and good.
Yep.
It's like, hey, that's not an answer. Like that's not an answer. Like, what's going on? Like, what's up with your life? Like, what are things that have happened? Like, tell me about something. Have a conversation, have some personality.
Yeah.
And that's something that's really beneficial that people don't necessarily realize, that the value of that. It's more than just about hockey. And if you're a parent or coach and you've never been in that situation before, if you've never had like a serious job interview or something where people are really judging like your merits, and you haven't had to sit there and feel the heat being in the hot seat like that, then it's hard to prepare your kid for that, or one of your players for that. And I remember the same thing happening in school, and we'd go for these internship interviews. I was saying this to you before we started recording. Some of these kids would go in and they were just like terrified, like absolutely terrified. And they're not 15, they're like 18, 19 and terrified.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what the heck? Like, just go, you're just having a conversation. Like, it's not crazy. All the while me thinking like, I've had 10 years of talking with people like this because of hockey, and like what a leg up that was to season me to be able to do that. And it's the same thing. They're going to come in and ask you these questions, and you need to be ready to give a decent answer, and that can just make you go like through the roof. Like, wow, that's a mature young man that would be good for our organization. And that's how they're thinking about it, even though you're only 15.
Yeah. Well, so starting off on the interview process, it's very important that parents can be very helpful with this. Coaches can be very helpful with this. And if they're not, find someone that can help you in the interview process, which could be someone like me. So all my viewers, if you're a kid and you're in that situation right now, if you'd like to do a Zoom one with me, I'll do it with you, because it can make or break you. So one of the things I always tell Charlie is like, and I tell all the kids, you choose to be a hockey player, you can get judged no matter where you go. So if you like to wear hat sideways and look like you just came out of the fart sack, then that's one thing. That's how people are going to judge you. So in the interview process, even though most of them are being done by Zoom right now, which is economical and makes sense, I said this to Charlie, it might not even. First of all, we worked on some questions. The next thing was, okay, so for your interview, it wasn't like a big deal. I just told him, I said, so what time are you on today? And he, 2. I said, okay, make sure you comb the lid, put on a shirt that doesn't make you looks nice on you, because you're presenting yourself. So you're making an impression. You only have one chance to make that first impression. Yeah. So do it properly and do it well, right? Second thing, when you speak, try to use your voice, like project your voice. There's so many kids when they're younger or intimidated or unsure, their voice will go down, and they become very shy and draw within. Withdrawn. Is that the word?
Yeah.
Drawn.
Yeah,
something. They do something.
Withdrawing away.
Yeah. So you try to have some sort of confidence and answer questions with a projected voice. So those are really basic things. I'm actually curious how many parents would actually have said that. Yeah. Because you take it for granted, right?
Yeah.
In fact, sorry.
No, go.
In fact, I was telling Eric Wellwood this morning, he coaches in the OHL, and I was explaining to him yesterday about Charlie's interviews, and he said, oh man, he's doing good. And then I explained about this other boy that we did the interview process with yesterday, and he goes, Andy, I swear to you, I never even thought of working on that skill. He goes, I've done interviews with kids, and within the first second, I go, get out of here. Like, not out loud, but it's like, come on, your hat's on backwards or sideways. How you doing? And they're like, good. And with zero. They're not like what you have to understand about the interview process or when you're meeting someone like that. It's like going on your first date, right? If you go on a first date and if you take out a girl on a first date and she's eating chicken wings and she's got frickin' chicken sauce all over her face and licking her fingers like this, guess what? Probably the last date, right? Did you not learn any manners?
You're not calling back.
You're not calling back unless you're into that. Chicken wing girl. But right, so most women or most people, when they take their first date and they go out, they probably dress properly, they make that first good impression, and if they have something to eat, it's probably not something when they're licking ribs off of their fingers and they got sauce all over the place and 27 napkins and shrapnel everywhere. They're probably having a salad or they're eating it. Like, I know if I was to do it again, it'd be like I'd take breaths in between bites and stuff. Like, now my wife goes, Jesus. But it's the same thing. There's no difference. I know that might sound funny and stuff, but there's no difference.
Well, you got to present your best.
100%.
That's what you got to present.
Right.
Yeah.
Or else you're not getting another date.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things that we've talked about before too is
farting at dinner.
Yeah.
Nice impression, hon.
Oh God.
You want to go on date number 2?
Well, and it's funny because how obvious that seems, like such an obvious thing. Like, yeah, obviously you're gonna wear something nice and you're gonna have manners at the table and you're gonna. Yeah. But then with something like the interview, it doesn't seem that obvious now because you haven't been in that situation. But it's just this. What do you got?
So, sidetrack so bad right now. I'm 21, 22 years old. Guy I played hockey with goes, because I hadn't dated in a while, like I was just like a mess. And he goes, I got a blind date for you. I go, come on. How big is she? And he goes, no. I said, come on. He goes, no. So him and his girlfriend and I met this girl for a date. She comes in. She got some pretty big cankles. And I'm like, come on, man. Like, I don't know, whatever. It's just, it wasn't my type. So anyways, speaking of first impressions, everything she ordered had cheese on it.
Yeah.
And then, like, the salad would come, and the waitress would be like, would you like some cheese? And she goes, yes. And just be hammering away at the cheese. And she goes, just a little more on every meal. So I'm sitting there going, wow. That was, like, a lot of cheese.
You don't want to be cheese girl on the first day.
Yeah, you don't want to be cheese girl on the first day. Oh, man.
Well, anyway, so you go. So
we were talking about something.
Yeah. So when you're going in, I don't even remember what I was going to say.
Who knows? You're trying to impress people.
So anyways, you're talking about the projecting your voice and putting a dress shirt on and whatever, obviously, because you want to present the best side of you possible.
Without looking like you're going to your own funeral.
Right. And without going over the top the other way, where you don't have to wear a suit and pretend glasses and bring a book with you to make you look like you're smart. Like this, that's not what we're saying, but just present yourself. Like wear something decent. Yeah. And one thing to keep in mind when you're talking about kind of being shy and the projecting your voice kind of thing, one thing that it's good to keep in mind, and I've heard you say this to the one kid you were helping the other day, is they asked to interview you. Mm-hmm. And that's a good thing you can use as motivation to give yourself some confidence. Like, oh, like they want to interview me because they think I'm good. Otherwise, they wouldn't have asked.
100%.
So they're interested in me. So use that fact as some motivation for yourself so that you can maybe sit up a little taller and not be scared to give a serious answer and talk in full voice and you don't have to go in there scared like they're just judging me as a negative. You know, they could be judging you as a positive too.
Well, they are.
Right? And that's the point.
To get an interview, like actually for a general manager of a team to take what could possibly be an hour to 2 of their time to ask questions to you is because they're very interested in you, not because they kind of are. Mm-hmm. Like not everyone gets interviews. So when you get an interview, it's because they like you. Yep. And that's a big thing. And that's cool. So that's something in your pocket. So you like me, and all they want to know is, so kids, if you can keep this in mind, all they want to know is that, you know, you can put a sentence together. They just want to know if they like you. at the end of the day if there's someone that can fit on their team. And for some people, you won't.
Yep.
Right? It's some people it's just not the right fit, but at least they know. But they do like you, so that's step number one.
Well, and it just increases your chances, right? Like if you can have these, maybe you end up not being the right fit, even though you had a good interview and you had a good conversation and whatever, and maybe you're just not the right fit, and that could happen. But your chances are higher if you can have a decent conversation. Yeah. It's just like a job interview. It's the exact same thing. If you make a connection with the person talking to you in some way, your chances are just higher. That's just the way that it is.
Yeah.
And you know, we've said this before too, like people saying like, oh, you shouldn't care what people think and whatever. And it's like, actually you should. You actually should care what they think because they're the ones that are going to give you the opportunity. So know that going in and make sure you're prepared in that sense.
Yeah.
Look decent, be ready to have a conversation, sit up tall, project your voice, talk to them like you're a grown up. Even like fake it till you make it, man. Talk like you're a grown up, even if you're not ready yet. Do it anyways. Just do it anyways. Keep it in mind. Do it anyways.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. So what's important to know? So I'm gonna probably take everyone through some questions that have been asked, that could be asked, and how to answer them. So not every team, there's not a generic thing out there. They say, okay, A, B, C, D, interview's over, right? They want to see your personality if you can, but they want you to be you. Right. So you have to have an idea about yourself, obviously. So a couple of things you should be aware of. You should be aware of you, your game, what you bring to the table, what your deficiencies might be, and about the league and where you want to go. So if you kind of get a lot of questions answered, and I'm not here to give you answers. I'm here to give you ideas. So one of the first things they're going to ask a player, so I want, if parents listening to this, ask your son one or two questions like this. If you were to, so this is pretty much the first question most people always ask after they talk about their team. What type of player do you model yourself after? Or what type of player do you play like? Or something along those lines. Yeah. And the answer to that question to most kids is, I don't know. Or what all the GMs have told me, most players will say Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner here in Ontario. And that's so far from what most kids are. Mm-hmm. It's not even funny. So if you say, and maybe you are Austin Matthews or Mitch Marner, but if you say that, they probably thought you didn't put a lot of thought into your answer because you've never really thought about it. Like, who do you actually play like? Yep. So when I asked yesterday, the kid told me, he struggled, but I think he had a lot harder time articulating it. He might have been even nervous to say who he feels like he played with, and I get that. Yep. Because he didn't want me to laugh at him and say, well, you're not that, and I wouldn't. Right. So I'm going to use Charlie, for example, now because I'm safe to talk about my son. So when we discussed that, and we've said this for years because he wanted to be a good player. Who do you play like? He goes, well, I think I play like Tom Wilson. I think I play like Brady, the Kachuk brothers. I said, okay, why is that? So he gave me all the reasons. He goes, because I can score and I have some skill, but I also like to grind. I'm good on the walls. I like to win the battles, blah, 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 blah. Every interview he's had so far, they said, yeah, that's to a T. And good for you for knowing who you are. Mm-hmm. And then they ask, so why do you want to be like that? Right? So he has an answer why he wants to be like that, because most guys aren't goal scorers, but if I have a role like this, every team needs a person like that. Yep. And you get to play on all different situations, and it's a valuable thing, and blah, 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 blah. He goes through the process. So that first question is you have to have some sort of answers that's just not a generic thing. You have to know who you play like. Not have to, but should have a good idea and be able to explain who you play and why. Yeah. So, for example, so I'm going to give you a background of the boy that you walked into yesterday, right? It was so good because he's a good player. So this guy's is a captain. He is pretty skilled. He's a great kid. He's really he's very good defensively. He does all the little things right. So, anyways, as we talked about this, he said, how does I think maybe like Patrice Bergeron. He goes, I'm not that. I said, no, that's a great thing to say. Okay, Patrice Bergeron. Who else? And then we came down with not Thomas Hertel, Sean Couturier, and we came down with Pavelski. Yep. So what we did is we took all his skills and we said, okay, what do you do well? Okay, I focus on winning faceoffs. Okay, that's a good defensive forward. Is that important? It's huge important. I strip pucks from people. I tip pucks. I'm a playmaker. I take care of all 3 zones. I back check hard and all those kind of things. Those are quality things. So if he would have just said, if he says Patrice Bergeron without any reason, then it's like, okay, like, why, man? So I explained to him, when you give that answer, so I want you to say, don't say I'm Patrice Bergeron, but use 2 or 3 of those guys and say, here's why I play like them. Because I take a lot of pride in my face-offs. I take a lot of pride on getting, dishing the puck out, making clean exits out of my zone, finishing my checks, stripping pucks, tipping pucks, doing all the little things, and blah, 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 blah. Mm-hmm. So I said, if you come up with an answer that explains it too, now you're like 10 steps ahead of the game.
Right. Well, and this goes to your point that you talked about in another podcast too, where you're talking about thinking fast and slow, right? And one of the things that some of these kids could do, because for a lot of kids, if you're getting a bunch of interviews or some interviews or whatever, you're probably one of the leading producers on your team in terms of points.
Yeah.
So it would be easy to say, well, I do lead my team in goals or points or whatever.
Yeah.
So saying that I model myself after a point guy is probably a fair statement, because I do lead my team in points, but it's deeper than that. And that's where you need to think like more critically about how exactly, like, what is your style of play? So if you default to an answer like Connor McDavid or one of these like top stud players that gets all the points, even if that could be true to a certain extent, find someone else. That's not an easy answer. Mm-hmm. So then you actually have to put some thought into why you think you play like that.
Yeah.
So if you're like really fast and really skilled and you put up big points and all that, and you can do end-to-end rushes and stuff, there's a lot of guys that can do that aren't Connor McDavid. Find somebody else.
Yeah.
Just because it's a better answer. Just because you're, first of all, because you're probably not Connor McDavid, even if you think you are. But even if you are that good, just by finding someone else who's not just like a common default answer, you're showing that I'm actually like trying to put some thought into why.
And I've watched a couple games of hockey.
Exactly, right? Yeah. So for this kid that you were talking to, Bergeron is a great example. That was a guy that I thought of, because we talked about a few weeks ago. I was like, man, he reminds me of this guy so much, because he does these little things defensively. He's not flashy, but he just gets the job done. And you can put him in any situation and he contributes, whether it's offensive, defensive, doing the little things. So that's a great answer for a kid like that.
Yep.
And with Charlie's answer talking about Tom Wilson, it's like, he's got that. He can go run you over, which is good. And if he says, I play like Austin Matthews, which I think he does, parts of his game are like Austin Matthews, where he floats into the slot, finds good spots, he can get good shots off.
Yeah.
But it's more correct that he says something like Tom Wilson, because he has that jam.
100%.
And so if you're somebody listening to that answer, then that's okay. This kid put some thought into this, which is a huge plus.
Yeah. No. On the flip side of that, though, if you actually think you're Austin Matthews or Mitch Marner or Connor McDavid, fine. Go ahead. You say it, but you better be able to explain it. Right. But if you actually sit there, because there's actually something about that, if you can sit there and give the reasons why, and if I can look at whoever, GM of whatever team, I could say, if they say, who do you model your game after? If you say Connor McDavid, and I know that seems, and I would say it like this, right. I know that this seems absolutely ridiculous, but I'm telling you, I am the fastest skater in Ontario. I can slice through D. I can carry the puck end to end. I love scoring goals. I will not let you down. I will. I can do this, and you're cocksure about it, right? And you can sit there and back it up. You're probably less of a chance of being believable, but if you can sit there and say, this is how I play and I will prove it to you, good for you. I mean, at least it's some confidence.
Well, and that's a good point, because because it's true. That is true. Mm-hmm. It's just the chances of that being true are low. So obviously we're kind of generalizing this out to most of the kids that are going to be getting interviews. But if that is actually how you play, and you're the kid, you can go do the end to end, and you don't play very physical. Or if you're a guy more like Matthews, where you just navigate your way to the slot and find loose pucks and bury it and all that, that's fine. But yes, you better be able to explain exactly why you're saying that, and not just say, well, I play like Connor McDavid because I'm fast.
Yeah.
It's like, that's not a good answer.
Yeah.
So that's a good.
Another thing because what you want to do as you're doing this, you want to build a theme for yourself, and I'll explain that in a little bit. But as you say, who I play like is something that's very important, that it's not just, it's probably the most important thing you're going to say is that, and I play like this because, so what Charlie said and what this boy is going to say in his interview is, and I play this way because I know that teams need this type of a player. It's sometimes not the flashy part. It's the job that teams need to win because they want winners. They don't want selfish assholes. Mm-hmm. They want winners. So I'm going to do things that make our team win. These are important things.
Yep.
Right? And and these things make the players around me better.
Yeah, that's huge.
That's another important thing.
That. Yeah,
that's a very, very important thing to say.
It's about the team.
As long but if you don't have the right identity, when they grill you on a question like that, you better know the answer because they're going to call bullshit pretty quick if you don't believe that.
Well, and this is, I was going to get to this after, but bringing it up now is the answers that you're giving, you're not trying to give the right answer.
No.
You're trying to give an honest answer.
Yeah.
That's different. That's not the same thing.
That's right.
There isn't a correct answer. There's just what's honest. So if you need to come up with honestly what you think, not what you think they want to hear.
That's right.
And that's a huge difference. So even when we're talking about how these kids should be answering some of these questions, I don't want people to misunderstand and think, oh, there's a certain way I need to answer these questions. Right. It's no, you have to just be honest with them about what your answer is, put some thought into your answer, and that's what's important. It's not, well, if you're a big time point guy and you go end to end and it's always about you getting the goals, and then you say, oh, well, like for me, I'm like really defensive because I know teams need that. And they're gonna be like, well, you don't play like that at all. Like,
right.
You're not.
That's right.
They know exactly.
Right.
They've seen you. They know how you play.
Yeah.
So you can't bullshit either.
Yeah.
So it's about being honest. It's about having an honest answer and then being able to back it up and explain it when they grill you on it, because they're going to grill you on it.
Yeah. Well, it was funny because the one team last week that interviewed Charlie, they watched him play the week before, and when they called me right after the game and they said, "We love your kid. We love your kid." Like, he jumped out at us. He's different than every other guy out there. For whatever. So when he wrote down the questionnaire that he had to fill out, he said, I play like this, this, and this. And so anyways, this general manager said he played exactly, because this doesn't happen very often. He played exactly what's on that sheet. He goes, most kids will say something and it's not even close. He goes, that guy knows what kind of player he is. So it's got to match up. And if it matches up, it's like, that's even better.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I think that's probably good for that part.
Yeah,
like, you got to know who you are. You got to be able to explain what you do, and you got to know why you do it, right? Yep. And so if you know what your strengths are or what type of player you are, you know what the next thing you need to know is what you might be deficient at, because that's probably going to be the next question. So the next question is probably, so what would your weaknesses be in your game? So it was funny yesterday. The kid says, I'm not very good at that. I said, okay, don't say that you're not very good at something, even though you're just being honest.
Yeah.
Say, I feel like, if you're just a terrible skater, you can say that I know skating is something that I need to improve on. And if you're working on it, hopefully you're working on it, you can say that. But don't point out your weaknesses necessarily, but know that you have a weakness. So I've coached my son to say, well, I feel my game is pretty well rounded. I know that I always need to work on a couple of things. And the thing that I'm working on is ABC, which is, I'll just say, is having quicker feet when I'm separating myself from someone to create more space to make more. So, but that's an intelligent answer.
Yeah.
And the reason he said that is because he's asked that question, what do I need to work on? Mm-hmm. Which people don't do a lot of times. So when you can actually identify something that, oh, okay, the kid is actually aware. He's not telling me he's shit at something, but he's aware that that he could be better at this, and he's working on it.
Yeah.
They might ask, how are you working on it? Which you better be ready for it, which my son is. He's able to do that. I do it through the gym, doing these exercises. I do it on the ice, doing on these type of drills, and I'm aware of it. Every time I go to practice or when I work on things, it's in my head to work on this, work on this, work on this.
Yeah, well, I do think it's important. I don't know if we disagree, or maybe you just didn't say it the way you meant, but you should actually point out your weaknesses. I don't think you should not point out your weaknesses, because they know what your weaknesses are or what they think your weaknesses are. So you do want to say what your actual weaknesses are. You don't want to say, well, I just score too much sometimes, right? It's like that's not an answer, right? So no, you actually want to point out.
I'm agreeing with you.
Because it's a self-awareness thing too, right? Like, does this kid actually know what he's not good at?
Yeah, but it's what I'm saying is how you present it.
Right, exactly. So it's the velvet on the sledgehammer thing, right? So you're saying, yeah, I know, like, maybe like you said, I feel like I'm all rounded, but I know I could increase my foot speed and separate it from guys. And even if they don't ask you, Have a way that you're improving on it, and actually be doing that in your spare time. Don't just make up some BS, right? Yeah. So if you actually need to work on your feet, then I want to increase my foot speed and separating with guys, so I do this in the gym, I do this on the ice, yada yada, and have an answer, even if they don't ask you. Just say, this is, and I know that, and I'm working on it this way. Yeah. So
100%. So that's what I would say to that is exactly what you said. You identify, but you don't say, I'm just horrible at skating. Yeah. Well, but you say this is something that I'm working. I realize that I need to work on my skating.
Right.
I need to work on my shot.
And that was something that it was funny because when we were getting prepared to do these job interviews, these engineering interviews, these people interviewing us are really smart. They know. Yeah. And they know what it actually takes to do the work and to do these jobs well and all that. And when people come in and they say, well, I'm just a perfectionist. That's my weakness, that I'm a perfectionist.
I'm too good looking.
Yeah, it's you're annoying. That's not a real weakness. No. And so something that I would say, because this is something I actually think is a weakness for me, is oftentimes I'll get praise, you've complimented me on this before, the attention to detail and how organized things are and all that. That's a good thing. But it's also a bad thing. And that's something that I would say in interviews for myself as my weakness is sometimes I'll spend so much time on little details that actually don't matter that much that it actually slows me down. And
you just did it last night with the logo.
Yeah, exactly.
And this morning.
Exactly.
Guys, listen to this. Yeah. So we have a logo coming out for one of our fitness things called the PowerTech Army. So we just took our logo, real simple. We didn't do it. We had a graphics guy do it to put the Army in there and it's the same logo, only different. Yeah. And it looked great. And then scientist boy here, detail guy, was which is great. You start looking at, well, should we add this? Should we add this? So anyways, we had what I thought was an incredible logo with because it was PowerTech Army and fitness. So we had an Army symbol in it, and he goes, I don't know, it's American. This is the star. This I don't know, and I'm like, dude, get rid of it. Yeah, let's just keep it simple.
Let's go.
Let's just keep it simple. But that's exactly it. It's I wouldn't say it's a fault, but it can be.
Yeah, because I know that if there's that work that needs to be done, and normally it doesn't become a problem, but I can get bogged down in the details, and it can keep me from doing things at a faster rate because I get caught up in these things and make things more complicated than they need to be, and I know that's a weakness, but that's an actual weakness. Now that's a real answer. I just gave them a real answer of something. And I'm showing you I'm aware of it, and I'm actively trying to get over that and make sure in those situations I'm doing something to try to mitigate that and get around that so I don't get caught up. Yeah. And that's the same thing you should go into these interviews with. When they ask you a weakness, actually know what your weaknesses are, and then give a good answer of how you're addressing the weakness. Yeah. And that's the biggest thing, especially for the kids going into this. It forces you to think about your own game. And think about what you're good at, think about what you're not good at, and then come up with ways. And then it actually helps you to, when you're practicing this stuff, it'll actually help you to identify that stuff, and then you can actually work on it in real life too, which is a bonus.
Yeah, 100%. So it's good. Yeah, you got to know your weaknesses. Here's one that was brought up the other day. What do you feel you brought to your team last year to your team?
Great question.
It's a great question, but how many kids? Not a clue. What I brought to my team? I scored goals. It's not good.
Not good.
So this is where I'm going to explain after again. You're going to create an identity. So my son and this other kid could say this. I'm going to use them for example. So what I brought to my team is I brought obviously some offense, some able to kill penalties, get the puck and clean out and all that kind of stuff, but leadership. Right? I brought some leadership to the team and doing the things that help the team win. I brought leadership to make other people better. Basically stuff like that. Yep. But you need to have a good answer, right? So that's something. But so there's a theme that I'm coming with, right? So because there's going to be some questions that you're not going to really know, but you can always go to your defaults. So if you noticed what I said in the beginning is what type of player are you? Well, I'm a player, blah, 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 blah. And these jobs make my team better. Important. The next thing, my weaknesses. I'm working on my deficiencies. Right. The next one is what do you bring to your team? Blah 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 to make my team better. Leadership. And if it's not you, it's not you. But I'm using this as an example of a kid these two guys were captains and all that kind of stuff. So they did bring that element of it, doing the things that were helping the team win, not just selfish stuff. Mm-hmm. Okay. So the next question is who's the best player out there or the toughest player you played against. Now, they ask this for a couple of reasons. One of the reasons is they want to see if you're aware. Another reason is they want to maybe get a scoop on if a guy's name comes up 10 times, this guy's a tough guy to play against, that guy's getting picked. So you have a choice. You can promote someone else, or you could, and if someone sticks out, please do it. Like, people deserve that. But if you don't have an answer, because my son was like, and I get it, because when I played, I said there wasn't really anybody that I was like, that's a tough guy to play against, really, every now and then. So he was like, I don't know. So the first interview he had, he goes like, he just named a guy that was pretty good, and he goes, that wasn't really true, Dad. I don't find him hard to play against at all. I said, well, let's think about it. He goes, I don't really find too many guys hard to. He goes, actually, the boy that we're talking about, he goes, he might be the hardest guy to play against, but he's on my team. I said, okay. If we think about that answer, then when you're asking a GM, you could either say, this guy on this team is really tough to play against, and here's why. Or you could, like I told Charlie and this guy the other day, I said, use your teammates. So just be honest. Say, you know what? Because if you're a really good player, it's fair to say that. I don't find anybody that hard. So you can say, okay, honestly, we have a good team. Now you're including your team. You don't sound like an asshole. We have a really good team, and I haven't found anybody really that hard to play against. And it might be because our team is so good. And in fact, I think if you're going to pick someone on our team, or if we're going to pick someone that's really hard to play against, I would say it's probably someone on my team, because we'd go out there and hammer guys, and we'd dominate teams and stuff like that. And that's actually a really good answer. Now they might say, who's that kid? And you might be able to promote your own teammate.
Well, and the other part of that too is a good way to frame that, if you are going to pick someone on your team, is you do spend a lot of time practicing against this person. Whether it's a one-on-one or a 3-on-3 in practice, or you're going into whatever, you see a lot of this player. You know what they do on a day-to-day. You see how they play against other teams when you guys are playing. So I think it's fair to say this guy's really tough to play against for a reason X, Y, Z. And if you don't have somebody that on another team, like, don't make something up. Like, again, it's about giving honest answers. Yeah. And if there is someone that's really good that you find really hard to play against, and you just don't want to say their name because you don't want to promote them or whatever, like, I don't know if that's good or bad, but whatever you decide to do, like, you need to make sure you still have a good answer, though.
Yeah, have a good answer,
because the question is important. So have a good answer. If you don't want to say this other guy because you think, oh, they're going to get picked higher than me, I don't necessarily think that's the best thing to think. But if you choose to not pick that person, then you better have another person. Yeah,
but have a solid answer. That's what I was saying. Like, if you can't come up with that answer, an idea would be, we had a really good team, and I didn't find that anybody was really hard to play against. It might be because our team was so good. Yeah. And blah, blah, blah. Right? So probably one of our teams. Members of our team. So that one's that. We need to get better at Oh, here's an interesting one. So, are you working out, or what do you do for a workout? So interesting, because some teams really grill you on that. So I remember Charlie, the first one, he has answers, right? And he had his journal sitting there. So Charlie takes, because, through us, he's learned that write things down. So it's an exercise that he thought was cool at the time, but now it's paying dividends. So he explained, when they asked, he had the thing right beside him. And they said, what type of workouts are you doing? He goes, oh, so I do this. I do it with, at PowerTech with my dad's company with Eric, and Dalton Proud has really worked. And so use your tools and explain to them what you're doing. And he went through it. And he goes, and if you ever did want to see my workouts, he pulled up his journal. So 15-year-old kid pulled up his journal. He goes, like, I have all my workouts here. So if you ever wanted to see my workouts, they're all right here. So do you think the guy on the other end of the screen, or if you're doing an in-person interview, sees that and goes, no, that's like so huge. That is so huge. Like, in fact, I saw their faces every time that he does this, and they just go, wow, okay, that's good, because not a lot of 15-year-olds are doing that.
Well, yeah, and
go ahead.
Well, no, and the reason that's so huge is because it shows that you're serious. It shows that you're willing to do the work. It shows that you're willing to make sure you're tracking progress and staying in between the lines and working towards something. It shows that you're mature enough to actually do that and take it serious. It shows you're willing to make sacrifices because you have all your data recorded about it. So it's just an indicator of all of these extra things. It's beyond just I wrote my workouts down.
Yeah.
It's what does it mean? The fact that you do that, the fact that you write things down when you're 15 means a whole bunch of other things, and they know that.
Oh yeah.
And that's why that's such an important thing. And that this is why, like, we've talked about these things all the time, like things about like reading and writing and taking school serious to the degree that it teaches you these kinds of skills of how to speak and think and read and all that. And this is why, like, like you said, like here's an opportunity. Like, here is where it matters now. Because if you have all these things, at least on the road to being developed, then they notice that. And they don't just think, hey, this kid's a brick. Like, he has no clue, he's lost. Yeah. And it's just such a great thing that, especially when you hear things like Charlie having good answers, or even with especially because the guy that Charlie's been around the gym with a lot comes in and he's around it all the time now, and he's starting to pick up some of these habits, and he's starting to talk about it's important to write things down and read and what. And this is why, because you're going to get tested. Yeah. You will get tested. Yeah. And you think it's not cool to do all these things, and you think it's a pain in your ass to do all these things until it matters. Yep. You know, so just one.
But speaking of Charlie's journal, like, I hope they don't look at it, because if they do, no, because it's in crayon. Yeah. I'm just kidding, Charlie boy.
Magic marker, bleed through the pages.
Just kidding. He's doing a great job. But so, having said that, when I was working with the player yesterday, we were talking about the workouts, and I saw his journal there, but maybe he didn't use the term or whatever. So I said, "Hey, dude," I said, I saw it, but do you have a journal? He goes, no. I said, no? I said, what's that? He goes, oh, that's where I write all my workouts. I said, hence, it's a journal.
So your journal.
Your journal. So he goes, oh. I said, dude. I said, you bring that to your interview. You bring it. And you sit there. And I said, let me see. So he had his work, because he's been hanging out with that gym. It's a habit that we've created for him. And he's got workouts filed in there. I've done this, I've done this, I've done this. I said, do you understand how that, like, you don't have to say anything. You just have to go like this. This is my journal of my workouts. And that action right there will speak volumes and volumes more than any words can. Yeah. Right?
Well, so the journal thing is huge too, because we've talked about it before, like doing the things that aren't cool. And when you talk about having a journal, like what I used to think of when it was like have a journal is I would think of like a 12-year-old girl writing in her diary.
Yeah, me too.
That's what I would think of. And it just isn't that. No. So you have to remember that the people that you're talking to are adults. Yeah. So they're the people that understand the importance of sacrifice and being organized and keeping track of what you're doing. Like, these are things that adults know because they're adults and they've been through the ringer. And the fact that you do this already, it's rare. And because your goal is something that's rare, it's like, okay, this kid is doing things that are rare. So this lines up. This kid is doing something that's rare. His goal is rare. This kid has some promise.
And that shows leadership, because if you're doing something rare, then it means you probably don't give a shit what other people think of you.
Absolutely.
That means if the older kids say, hey, let's go, we're off the bus, we're going to this bar, you might be just strong enough. Like, the adults look at it and say, that kid might be strong enough to say, no, I got to go home. I want to be an NHL hockey player or whatever. Yep. Right?
For sure.
Which goes to the next point is, and I'm not saying everyone asks this, but why would you like to play in the OHL? Why would you like to play for the Windsor Spitfires? Why would you like to play for the London Knights? It's not a good question. It's going to happen. Why? And again, so my son, the first one, I said, they're going to ask you, when I asked him for pretend, I said, why would you like to play for Sarnia? He goes, well, because it's a good city. But this is before he did it, right? Yeah. This is what the answers they are actually going to freaking give, because it's a cool city and it's got a lot of tradition. So I said to him, so if I'm the general manager, I said, I got to take this kid. He thinks Sarnia is a cool city. Do you think that's a good answer? He goes, no, I don't know what to say. I go, I know, that's why we're doing this, dude. So, but tell me why. So he started going, because, they've produced NHL players. It's relatively close to my home where my family could come and see, and he gave 4 or 5 answers. You might be going to a team where the coach, because I'm not picking on a team. There's several teams that have this. Maybe the coach for the World Juniors. Maybe they've got 25 NHL players in the NHL right now, and you could just kind of go, well, I could tell that their strength and conditioning is really good, and the coach in the World Juniors, and it seems like a really stable organization. It looks like the development for me to get better so I can play in the NHL. Yep. That's why I would like to go. That's an answer, not because it's a cool city.
Exactly.
All cities are cool. You can make them that way. That's a dumb answer. And I'm not saying that you're a dumb kid. I'm just saying you have to think more than it's a cool city. Because you tell me it's a cool city, I'll say, yeah, so what? Yep. What if it's not? Mm-hmm. Now what?
Well, and the thing too is, it's like I said before, it's like you're going to do a job interview. If you're going to interview with a company, it's probably a good idea to know some stuff about the company.
Yeah.
You know, so if you're going to interview with whatever OHL team, it's probably a good idea to do some research about the OHL team.
100%.
So this is the other thing. What if you're getting interviewed by like Erie?
Yeah.
You have no idea, like far away. You don't know anything about the place. You don't know what's going on in the city, what's around. You know nothing. Go on the interwebs.
Yeah.
and look up who's the coach, what players have come out of that organization, what's around the city. Like what is good about it? Like what are some benefits of being there? Like try to find some actual answers. Because what if you can't say, oh, it's close to home?
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying.
What if you can't say that? What if you can't say, oh, like this really good player that I already know came out of that team? What if you can't say that? What if it's not a good city? What if it's really small? So you have to actually look and do some research so you know who you're talking to when you go and talk to them. And when you're 15, you can still do that. You can still go on the internet and you can still look up, where does Erie play? What does their rink look like? Yeah. Like, who is the coach?
Who's the coaching? Do they have a strength coach?
What's the fitness program like?
This is cool.
Who owns it?
Exactly.
Like, what's around it? Like Google Maps, what's around the rink?
What players have played there?
So these are all things that you can use as fuel. So do a little bit of research.
Well, Charlie had an interview last night with a smaller market team, and it was like, okay, so I actually didn't really know. I knew about it, but he obviously didn't, except for it's an OHL team and stuff. And that's what we did. I said, well, what's good about this? And you know, one of the things Charlie said when he gets drafted, he goes, I want to go to a small market team because, Dad, it's everything. The OHL is everything. They'll pack it, and it's all about the community. I said, oh, that's a pretty good answer. So when we looked at this team, it's not as sexy as some of the big name teams, but we looked into it. We spent not a lot of time, but we looked at there's a strength and conditioning, there's a power skating or skills coach. There's I think there was some mental toughness. There is a coach and GM that have played in the NHL. They've produced a whole bunch of NHL players recently, blah, blah, blah. So the answer now is like, and you know, they were saying how close proximity the players play within each other, like live within each other, and it's more of a community base, and they build a nice case. So if you actually did some homework, you could actually say those things.
Yep.
But to be more important about this is it goes back to, why do you want to play here, or why do you want to play in the OHL? To me, the more lofty your answer is, but you have to own the answer, the more interest they'll have in you. So I know it might be very uncomfortable to sit across a guy that played in the NHL that is judging you, to sit there and say, I want to play for this team, and I want to play in the OHL because I want to play in the National Hockey League, and to say that with some conviction. But if you don't say that with some conviction, then you're a tougher guy to coach. And it just is what it is. So what I mean by that is, like, if I'm training someone, and it's just like even the levels that I train, you're gonna get more juice out of the lemon if there's a bigger goal. So if someone's just playing because they like hockey, then there's probably so much that I can do to help them. But if someone's actually has a serious goal and wants to be an NHL player, then my commitment becomes stronger, and I take them a lot more serious. So if you have a conviction of, and listen, when they're interviewing you, it's because you're good. And if you want to play in the OHL because you just want to play in the OHL, it's actually the wrong reason. If you're, and they don't want to pick you just to play in the OHL. They want someone that, okay, you want to play in the NHL.
This kid's hungry.
Serious. He's hungry, and you're probably going to do a little bit more than the guy that doesn't.
Right.
So saying that, I know it seems like a lot, because in school, if a teacher, Charlie's been through this. Who do you want to be when you grow up? He's done it 10 times this year, and he says, I want to play in the NHL. And it's always, well, okay, yeah, but what do you want to be? That's the reaction people give, right? No matter who you are.
Yep.
Connor McDavid probably got that. Taylor Hall, I know, got that. But you have to believe it. So when it's hard to get those words out, but you have to own that. So that someone says, okay, so if I draft him, we've got 3-4 years to work on this kid. He wants to play pro. I can grind this kid. I can use him. I can abuse him. I could just, get every ounce of everything out of this
he'll put
kid.
everything into
Put everything into it. And then I know if I could tell him your curfew's at 11, and I know he'll be in at 11. Right? He's not going to be a shithead.
Yeah, well, because it speaks more to your character, right? And that's what is a big thing that they always say is like, we're looking for guys that have character. We're looking for guys that have character. And that's one of those things where if you have this big driver, then they can be more confident in the fact that you're willing to do the things that we need you to do to make our team successful, because you want to give yourself the best chance to go to the next level. And the best way that you can do that for yourself is by making sure our team is good and we win. That's the best way for you to do that, to get to that next level. So if you're telling them that I want to play in the NHL, this is the best development league in the world. Like statistically, the amount of kids that go to the NHL from this league is the most. And this is the place that I want to be. I think that I can be ready to play in this league and whatever, and that's going to give me the best chance to go and move on and play professionally. And that's a good answer. And then when they get to the team specific thing, then you can go into those other details about that city or that team specifically. But it takes some, like, get a freaking book and write some things down. Like stop the podcast when Coach Andy says the question and answer it for yourself. Yeah. And then practice the answer. Have those key things, those key characteristics about yourself or about the team or about the city ingrained in your brain, so that you're ready when they ask you these questions. You have it to pull from right away. Yeah.
You mentioned a word that I was actually getting to next, and you said character. So the one team I told you a week ago interviewed, they asked a couple of those questions, but they spent probably a good hour asking only questions about character, because the general manager told me when he called me, he said, like, I'm huge on this. He knows me from hockey. He goes, I'm huge on character. He goes, like, huge on character. He goes, I will not draft someone if I feel like their character's out of whack even a little bit. He goes, because it's too costly. Obviously, we know this. Yep. So they asked the questions about the game, about, certain things, your style and all that kind of stuff, but everything else was about character. So one of the things they asked early on was, asked about in COVID, how have you dealt with it, if you had any weak moments. So, Charlie was able to answer that. Question. But like, so with kids, have you had any? And you know what a great answer would be is that if you did, you say, yeah, I did. So the next question was, like, what did you do about it? Or how have you been busy during this? And you got to answer it, like, with some substance. So fortunately for Charlie, maybe he's more fortunate than the other people, I don't know, but he was able to say, I was able to let loose. Like, I've had some moments where I was just so angry that I can't play hockey, and that's like, there's almost like no purpose in life. But he goes, I was able to take out my frustration or use it as motivation to come to the gym and work out hard. So that's a great answer. And maybe he's fortunate, maybe he's not, but it shows something. They asked about, if you were down, I love this. I used this with the kid yesterday. So if you're down on your team, he goes, I just want to get a feel for you. If you're down if you're down 2 goals in a game, or you're not having a good game, or if things aren't going your way for the last 4 or 5 games, you're not getting points, or you see someone on your team with a kind of a negative attitude, like, how do you react to that? How many kids do you think can have an actual answer?
That's a tough one to answer, man.
It is, but here's where I'm going to tie in this whole theme of yourself. It doesn't work if you're not this guy, though. And if you're not this guy, you're probably not going to play anyways. No, I'm being honest.
I know.
So you have to be a team player. So what is mental toughness? Mental toughness is being good under pressure. Mental toughness is being in the now. Mental toughness, or being a good hockey player, is making other people better. So you can tie everything into that. So how do you react if the team is losing and you're down 2 goals and you see some negative attitudes? It's real simple. You don't have to be a hero, but your actions and your words have to be just basically focus on the mission, because that's all you can do. You can try to do a rah-rah speech. That doesn't work. It's useless, right? But if you see someone, if I see Eric, the scientist, coming off the ice, and he slams a stick, and I can see his body language is like, I'm having a shit game, I can't put the puck in the net, whatever. Me as a teammate, as a leader with a captain or whatever, it doesn't matter. I could look at you and say, Eric, just focus on the task. Next shift. Focus on the next shift. That shit's gone. Focus on the next shift. I've helped my teammate. I've become a better person, and I'm doing something constructive. I'm putting it into action. The mission is to have a good shift to win a hockey game, right? If I see, so that's that leadership piece. So if they ask you, if you're in a slump and you haven't scored in a few games, Well, if you've answered, I'm Mitch Marner, and I'm Connor McDavid, and you haven't scored in a few games, well, this becomes an issue now. Now you're in one.
Yeah.
But if you answered a question properly and gave some thought to the answer, now you haven't scored in a few games. Like, is the pressure getting to you? No, the pressure doesn't get to me because I know that scoring goals is not the most important thing in the whole world. That's why I become a well-rounded person. I know that if I'm not playing well, I can win a face-off. I can get clean pucks out. I can tip pucks. I can finish a hit. And those are important to me. And I can know that I can do things to make my team better.
Yeah.
And if that's like, I don't know what the metaphor is, but it's like it's just music in the GM and coach's ears because that's the person I want. They're not sitting there, and it's an answer. Because if you don't actually have an answer to that, you're not really that valuable.
Well, yeah, and that's one of the biggest questions that they're going to want to know is how do you handle conflict or negative environment or a slump or so all those things that you just pointed out, even if it's not a teammate, but if you're in a slump or you're having a bad game or whatever, again, like write it down. What would you do in that situation? Like, how are you going to manage that situation? Yeah. That's the actual question they're going to ask you. And the other thing is, if you don't do these things you're saying, like if you're not the guy that goes to your buddy and says, hey man, it's okay, like pick it up. If you don't have those leadership qualities, then now you know that. Yep. Because you're writing this down and you're like, these are things that you can now work on and try to get into your game, which is a good thing too. So before you go into that interview, you can talk about these kinds of things, right? You can say like, I'm trying to develop that ability to be, there for my buddies when they're having a bad game. And so I can talk to them and try to get them back on track or forget about and lighten the load for them or whatever. And you can start to work on those things. Yeah. But if you never ask the question or if you never write it down for yourself, then you're not going to know how to answer the question. You're going to be deer in the headlights. They ask you the question, what are you going to say? Yeah. If you're having a bad game, what are you going to do during the game? No one has ever asked you that question, like how are you going to, you can't possibly answer it. So you need to practice, not even practice. You just need to know what would you actually do in that situation. Yeah. Actually understand what you would do. Yeah. And then you can try to navigate and figure out, okay, well, even if I don't do this the best right now, what should I be doing?
Well, this is one of the things I tell all the kids when they are doing an interview. Like, so I'm going to skip one of the questions. Is like, because one of the questions are, do you have any expectations if you play in the OHL, if you play for this team? What would your expectations be? So people could be freeze. Well, score 5 goals. They might go, well, that's not very good. Score 5 goals. What, you think you're going to come in here and score 5 goals in 1 year?
Yeah.
Score 30 goals. Okay, yeah, kid, you don't understand our league.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So what I've trained Charlie to do and this guy to do is like have an intelligent answer. Number one, my expectations are I'm going to do is earn or learn and earn. So if you were to draft me, I'm going to come in and be the hardest working person I possibly know how to be. That's number one. Number two, I'm going to come in there because the organization, the coach, these guys have been, people have earned their stripes. The coaches have earned their stripes. So they know how to make better hockey players. So my second part after working as hard as I can is I want to learn as much as I can. I want to learn every detail I can learn to become a professional hockey player and to make this team better. And number three, I want to earn every piece. I don't expect one thing. I don't know. I can't promise you goals. I can't promise anything. I can promise you that I'm going to work real hard. I'm going to learn as much as I possibly can to help the team win and to make the team better and make myself a pro. And I'm going to earn everything I get. And I don't want it for free. I want to earn everything. Yep. If you say that, you can't go wrong.
Well, and you should actually think that.
No,
that's the thing too, right? And again, it's back to like trying to give yourself some honest answers, like develop. You actually want to be the guy that has the character. Again, I can't help but reiterate it. Like, you don't want to just give the answer you think is the right answer. You actually want to be the guy that does these things. So when they ask you a question like that, that is what you should think. You should think like,
well, no, 100%, because you won't be anywhere if you don't.
No, and how could you possibly know what is going to come when you get there? You have no chance, right? Unless you have an older brother that played already and he's told you a whole bunch of stuff. Maybe you have an idea of what it could be like possibly. But for the most part, you have no idea what to expect. Yeah. And they know you have no idea what to expect because you haven't played there before. How could you know? It is nothing like playing minor hockey.
Oh my God.
So that's a good, honest answer. Yep. I'm going to come in, I'm going to work hard, I'm going to do everything I can to contribute to the team, and I want to earn everything that I can earn. Yep. Because that's
everything and earn everything.
Because my goal is to move on to a higher level and play professionally, and that's a great answer.
Yeah, these two work hand in hand, but it was the one. Oh, this interview was so good because it spoke to me. So the GM goes, hey, Charlie, do you read it all? And I was like in my chair going, yeah.
Freaking right, man.
Because what do most kids are going to say? And if you're reading, I'm not saying it's bad, but if you're reading Harry Potter, that's probably not going to help you. I don't know. I've never read it.
They're so good.
Yeah. No, yeah. I know. Dalton says he loved them too.
They're so good.
But so Charlie had an answer.
Yeah.
He gave a couple books that he was reading, and I was like really proud of him, and he explained why. And so the GM goes, you know what? That's the kind of books that I like to read too. What you've done, like, guys, what you've done is you've taken something that we've been telling, like I told Charlie, I told you.
Yeah.
I told you.
Yeah.
Read. All these things that we've been, me, Eric, Dalton, all this we were telling you about, I said, we're not joking. We're not just doing it so we can feel good about you getting good marks. This is real life. So are you glad that you read a freaking book?
Yep.
Yeah. I said, you guys got something to talk about? I said, and the reason that he's reading it and I read it and Eric reads it and Dalton reads this stuff is because we're trying to get better in life. Because if you want to be a pro, if you want to do something great, you're going to have to learn how to face fear. You're going to have to learn how to face adversity. You're going to learn how to put yourself in uncomfortable situations, and you're going to listen to how someone else has done it. So it's not a joke when we say read a freaking book. All you kids out there, it's not a joke.
Yeah.
If someone asked you, like, think of how many kids. If a GM asked them, because it's important. Like, listen, he didn't ask that because he just wanted to know if the kid read. Mm-hmm. It's important to him. He told me character is my number one thing. So if he asked my son, do you read? So my son said, I don't enjoy reading. He goes, I don't. And that's a fair answer because you're 15 years old. Who does? Till you learn to like it. But that guy was asking because that's important to him. And if I'm taking a kid that doesn't want to take time to invest in myself, I don't want him.
Yep.
And it speaks of the family. It speaks of the whole thing. So I was so proud on both ends. I was proud that my son had an answer because most kids wouldn't. They'd be like, yeah or no. And what book are you reading?
Yeah.
Right? I was proud of that. I was proud of the fact that my wife and I have taken the time to, teach our son the right things for the right reasons. And I was, when that GM asked that question, I wanted to go through the phone, give him a big hug, and say, I want to play. I want my son here. Mm-hmm. I want my son here because this is what it's about. I know the development program and how I have, and if that's the morals and principles that is going to be instilled in my son, please take my son.
Well, you always say success leaves clues.
And
it was like we were saying with the journal thing. It's not the fact that you use a journal. It's what the fact that you use a journal means.
Yes.
It's the same thing with reading.
Yes.
It's not that you read. He's not just, because some kids wouldn't even know that that's an important question.
Right.
Like some kids would probably sit in the interview, hey, do you read it all? Not really, no.
No, I know.
And not even know how important that question is.
Right.
So the fact that you have that the ability to answer that question, it's showing him, okay, like success leaves clues, man. This kid is already, even if, and that's great that Charlie honestly said, I don't really enjoy reading. That's awesome.
No,
because
I
you're not going, oh my God, I read all day, every day, all the time.
That's all I ever do.
That's all I ever do.
I try to sleep and I just read.
I can't. I just read the whole night.
I sit on the hopper to go to grow a tail. I'm sitting there, I grab a book, and I'm in there for 6 hours. And it's like, oh my God, my whole day's gone because I love reading. Yeah. No, you're not that kid.
You're not that kid, man. You're not. You're 15 and you're a hockey player. There's no way.
But going back to what we said, though, it's like I've said several times, you don't have to read a book a day.
No.
But I promise you, I don't think we covered this yet. You can take, I don't care if you do it like this, and you buy a book and you rip a page out. And you carry it with you all day, and you read it, or you have it sitting on the shitter, and you're doing it anyways. Most people bring their phones and read the one page, or one paragraph every time you go.
Yep,
you'll read a book.
Yep,
it's quality time.
When you
got to do it, guys. I'm telling you, you got to do it.
But it's like you said, you learn to like the reading.
Yeah.
That's what happens. You don't start because of the way. And again, this is like a school failure because they don't teach you why it's important.
Yeah.
But now that somebody important for Charlie. Think about for Charlie now, how reinforcing that is to this principal. He sat in an interview and this guy was like, hey bud, do you read? It's like, oh, so this guy that's like this, and this person that you're talking about, NHL guy, played a long time. Now he runs a team, like utmost respect for this guy. And he's like, oh,
great guy, by the way.
Oh, do you read? So for somebody like Charlie, it's like, oh, well, now it's not just my dad saying it. It's not just my teacher saying it. It's not just, people that I go to the gym with saying it. It's, oh, this guy that actually has some big time clout and has control over my future to a certain degree is saying it.
Yep.
Wow. Happy I started reading a bit. because
100%.
now I have an answer, and
100%.
And it again goes back to, what does it mean that you do that? It means I'm trying to develop my brain. I'm trying to learn some things.
Doing something uncomfortable.
Doing something uncomfortable, trying to figure out how to handle adversity or whatever it is you're reading.
Yeah.
Or even if you just say, without even getting into all that, even if you just say, hey, I don't really enjoy reading that much, but I know it's good for me.
Yeah.
I know it's something that I need to be doing.
My dad tells me to.
Yeah. Like even that alone. Yeah. I'm doing it because everyone keeps saying that it's really good to do. And I'm trying to figure out like why it's really good to do, but I'm doing it because that's what everyone keeps saying. Yeah. Even that, that's an answer.
100%.
So that's huge. It's huge, man. It's huge.
So going along that, I love this interview. It was so good. It was all about character. And so, people that are listening, like my point of this, why I'm going so in depth, and I don't know how long we're going here, but the reason I'm going so in depth is because I know, and Eric said it this morning, that most of the interviews are just like, oh, wow. You can, if you're going in and it's you and someone else, you can separate yourself, or you can separate yourself in a bad way. But moms and dads, like, ask your kids some questions. Make sure they listen to this stuff and ask some questions, because these will come up. I asked last night, I was walking by Charlie after his interview. I said, hey, Charlie, so have you ever done anything, have you ever been in a situation you've been under pressure and had to perform? And he looked at me and goes, let me think. But I did it not to get an answer. I did it so him to exercise that so he could come up with an answer. I said, well, think of something and let me know. And I know it's a pain in the ass sometimes, but I'm just trying to help him succeed. And he appreciates it because he can go to an interview and answer that. Most people couldn't come up with that quickly and articulate it. So anyways, this one interview was all about character. Listen to this one. Do you have any, routines? Like, I'm paraphrasing. Do you have any routines or attitudes or slogans that you live by? 15 years old? Huh. You might as well have taken him, pulled his pants down, come running about 100 meters and kick him in the balls. Yeah. For most kids. Yeah. What do you mean? What do you mean by that? Yep. This is a hard answer, and this is what we're saying. When you choose to go to this league or to become a pro, you have to grow up fast. So, do you have any slogans or attitudes or routines that you live by? So, Charlie said, "I'm not sure exactly what you mean." So he explained. He goes, "Well, like for our team, it's accountability is a big thing. Accountability. I want guys in the room that blah 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 blah." He goes, "Oh, okay. Well, yeah." So he explained. I wake up every day and I have, I eat and I work out and I try to be the blah, 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 blah. And I feel like making other people better is my thing. Okay, cool. That's an answer, man. Yep. Making people better. Cause that's that's been ingrained in my kid's head.
So you always say that.
I always say that. Yeah. So I was explaining to the boy yesterday when I went through that question with him, he goes, I don't know. I said, yeah, you actually do. I said, but this is the theme you have to build for yourself. Yeah. What were you going to say?
Well, I was going to, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. I was just going to say, you actually do know. You just need to sit and think about it. Yeah, you exactly. Actually do. You just haven't used your brain yet to think about these answers, but you actually do know. Yes. It's not that you don't know. And so having somebody like you or a parent or a coach that can help you do the thinking to get you ready is so huge. That's all I was going to input on that.
Yeah. So he said, I'm not really sure. I said, oh, it's okay, man. I said, so I turned it on me. I said, if anybody asks me what I do for a living, people think I'm a hockey coach. People think I'm a trainer. People think I'm a business guy. All these words. I said, that's not what I am. I said, I'm all that stuff wrapped into one phrase. And I said, I'm here to make people better, around me better. And he goes, oh, I said, okay, let's think about it. I said, if you go on the ice on me, what is my job? It's yes, to teach you hockey and all that stuff, but it's to make you a better hockey player. When we sit here and talk, I took you because I knew you were going to go in a situation. I'm your coach, man. I'm one of your coaches. I have an influence in your life. My job is to make you better. I could have sat there and said, oh, good luck. Good luck. You're going to be in shit creek with, I don't know how the phrase goes, but you're up shit creek without a paddle. Yeah. But I said, hey, come here. Are you ready for this? Like I did with my son, because I love you and I love my kid. I love all the kids I train. Are you going to be able to handle this? Do you want to know what they're going to ask? And you don't have any answers, man. Yeah. And I said, that's okay. That's why I'm here. Yeah. I'm here to make you better. Yeah. Your dad was talking about something the other day. I said, my job is not to listen. My job is to make them better, build them up. Everything I'm around, that's my job. I live by it. I don't just say it's a phrase, right? It's trained with a purpose at PowerTech. It's actually trained with a purpose. Don't do shit just to do shit. Mm-hmm. Do it with a purpose. Make people better. That's mine. What's yours? He doesn't know. I said, I know you don't know. You're 15 or 16. You just turned 16 the other day. So, but you're a captain on this team. I'm going to give you an example. You're a captain on the team. You're one of the hardest working kids. You do things right. You do it right all the time. You show up. You care. You do make people better around you, but you have this caring thing. And I said, I call that integrity. That's what I call. I said, you live with integrity.
That's great.
And I said, if you use that, I said, if you use that word, then that word itself is or I said what was the other word I used? Integrity and I was using the word yesterday. Integrity or anyways, let's just use integrity. It'll come to me in a bit. It's a very simple word, by the way. But I said, so you think about that, and you this ties into everything about you. Everything.
Yeah.
So when it comes, so when you're playing the game, if they say, what does integrity mean to you then? Like, how do you mean that? Well, that means that I show up on time. I show up first. I show up. I read when guys on my team are slacking because I'm going to be there for them. I know when I do drills and stuff like that, you listen and you already have it ahead of time. Like, you know what we're doing, and you start helping me set up because you're trying to make life easier and you're trying to make it better for the other guys, and you motivate and you care about other people so much. I said, that's what you call integrity, and that's a good quality to have.
Yep.
So now when they ask you about when things are on your team are going sideways and you see something happening, how are you going to act? It's with integrity, right?
Yep.
And I'm going to help guys, and it speaks everything that you are all about.
Yeah, and that's a really important thing to know about yourself, because for that kid, I didn't even think of that, but that's something that I would say for me, because originally when you were talking about you making people better, that's something that I have as a driver for me, but I think more than that for me personally is I care about doing things the right way.
Yeah.
I'm not about taking shortcuts. I want to do it the right way the first time, and that is the same kind of thing as having integrity. Like, you're doing things the right way.
You're honest.
Honesty. And that would be what it is for me. I never even, myself, I had never even really thought of that. If somebody asked me that question, I probably would have said something like what you say for you, like, I like making people better, but more applicable to me is probably that, like that honesty, integrity type thing, and knowing that about yourself, and then being able to say that when you're 15 or 16 to an adult.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, like, that's a good answer.
Yeah. It's a word, and that's what parents say. Now, I don't know why I'm not thinking of this word, because I said it and I thought it might have been too deep for him, and then I used just a different spin on the word, which meant the same thing. Like,
it was for integrity?
Yeah.
I'm gonna synonym
Well, it's not necessarily a synonym. It was just a word that I used that was somewhat comparable.
Honor, ethics, moral, righteous.
Like a synonym?
Yeah, synonym.
No, I think it started with a C. It's not even synonymized. Like, it's not a word it's just a simple word. Anyways, it'll probably come to me. Not stoic, just doing right. Anyways, doesn't matter. But it always comes back, because it was more like how you can apply it to hockey too.
Yeah.
Integrity. Whatever.
I'm gonna just keep talking. I'm gonna find it.
So it's just really important to have that. So parents, like, ask these questions and come up with a thought process that works. So now that when we talk like for this kid and my son, when we did these interviews, it's like, when a tough question comes, you always go back to that phrase or slogan or whatever. Like, so if I'm accountable. Let's say I'm a very accountable person. Well, now accountable means, okay, so in a game, you can count on me, right? Like, if all those questions they ask, you could always tie it into who you actually are. But you got to know who you are. So I think a mom and dad or Uncle Andy or the scientist here, come and ask us, because if we can help you, I mean, we might not know anything about your game, but we can help you find out your qualities so we can put something together.
Yeah.
It's really, guys, this is really, really important. And then just some of the expectations. What's your goals? Okay. And then one of the other things, like, is a real simple one. And people, like, Charlie was funny, the first one. So Charlie, you have any athletes in your family? So he was nervous as shit. He goes, yeah, my dad played, and my brother was a goalie. He signed with Washington. And then my other uncle signed with Washington. He was a goalie. My other brother won the worlds in boxing. And my cousins, he's like, so the answer to that question, I said, do you know why they ask you that? He goes, well, I think they're trying to find out if you're athletes. Or did you play any sports? He goes, yeah, I played lacrosse and baseball. I said, no, this has to be pumped up. They're asking you for a reason. They're asking if you have athletes in your family because they want to see if you have any bloodlines, any clue about sports, anything about being a team. So you need to say it like, yeah, my dad trains like about half of the NHL.
Yeah.
Like who? Which most of them know, but like who? Aaron Ekblad, Sergachev, keep going. Oh, how does he do? Like, it's a question. My uncle was he won the worlds in boxing. My other uncle was this. And you go down the list and you build that up because it's actually very, very important. Yeah. You get sports, you get the team, you get hard work. The kid's probably been around an atmosphere that he's going to be around if he's to succeed. Right. The other one was that you play sports. Like, you play sports, man. Don't just minimize it. Say, yes, I played baseball. I was good. I played it till I was 14 years old or whatever. I played this. I played, my son was, I played lacrosse and this helped him a lot. Played lacrosse and I found that really good for hockey because it really put an emphasis on defense and it really helped my hockey game. The other side of that is that I really enjoyed lacrosse, a lot of good hand-eye coordination, and it taught me how to be tough.
Yeah.
Throw out, like we play squash as often as we can. That's hand-eye. It's just athleticism. They're saying, okay, this kid is an athlete. He's not just some guy that straps on the boots and is not bad at that.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. He's interested in sports. He loves sports. Like all this kind of stuff is very, very important.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Don't minimize the questions because they're asking for a reason. They're not asking just to fill time.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say is they are never asking a question just to ask a question. So asking, do you have athletes in the family? Do you have, what other sports did you play? They're not just asking, or like reading, do you read? They're not just asking if you read just so you can say, no, not really. It's like actually a serious question for a reason. There's a purpose to the question. So that's obvious. Like obviously there's a purpose to the question. So like make sure you keep it in mind when they ask you the question. Yeah. Do you have athletes in your family? Yes, because I'm an athlete. I have athletes in my family. But what would you think about if you don't have athletes in your family?
What
like how would you answer the question? You don't have athletes in your family.
That's a good. You're throwing me on the spot here. I'd say no, I don't have athletes in the family because I actually didn't.
Neither did I. Yeah, that's why I'm asking.
I would say I don't really have athletes in the family. Like my uncle played a little bit here and there, but I loved hockey ever since, my grandfather bought me a little hockey stick and I just love hockey. Mm-hmm. I play every sport there is out there, but I happen to be very, very good at sports.
Or another way you could take that too is because I'm sure everybody, like even for some of the kids that come to the gym, maybe their parents aren't athletes, but they're at our gym all the time around athletes. Yep. So they can say, no, I don't have any close family members or anything that are athletes, but like some of my best friends, like I'm around their parents and they have athletes and whatever, and you can kind of go that way with it to kind of show that you're not just out in
you don't have to be an athlete.
No, but just have an answer. That's
an answer. Well, here's one I just thought about this one. Like Charlie with one of the big teams, they asked one of the first questions. They know me, but they said, "So how tall are you, Charlie?" So he goes, 6'1". And 180. How much do you think you're going to weigh in 3 years? So he goes, probably about 250. Like it's not really like I think it's actually a dumb question because who cares? You're either good or you're not. But whatever the reason is, because sometimes questions are a little silly. They asked, and so when they asked the height, because they know me, like I'm not 6 feet tall. Mm-hmm. My son's already 6'1", and he's still 15 for a long time. Just turned 15 more or less. So they're kind of like, well, he's 6'1" already, and they know him. They've seen him. Like he's a big boy. But it was kind of like he said they were kind of like, wonder how he got that tall. And then they said, yeah. So I would have said to him, I told him after, I said, but I get my height from my mom's side. Mm-hmm. I've got uncles that are 6'5" and 6'3.5", mm-hmm. and they're big.
Yeah.
My point to that is like, think about the question and take the question and how can I make it to my benefit? Mm-hmm. So I'm 6'1". It's an answer, but it's only an answer.
Well, I want to say that again. You how can I use this question to my benefit?
Yes.
That is huge. Yeah. Like keep that in mind. Like when you think it's a nothing question or whatever, how can I add to this question or give a good articulated answer that will benefit me? That is huge. So sorry, I wanted to just highlight that.
That's all I wanted to say is that like you said, they're not asking just to ask a question. Use it because you could either use it to just answer the question or make yourself better. Mm-hmm. So, find a way.
And the last one, I don't know if you wrote this question down or not, but the last one that I wanted to throw out there, because I'm pretty sure this is a pretty common question, is outside of who do you play like or who do you model yourself after, is like, who are your role models?
I asked that to the guy yesterday.
Yeah, so it's
very important.
Not necessarily a hockey role model, right? Just like, who are your life role models? Like, who are you modeling yourself after in life? And you could get that from a book or a coach and why. And that's another big question, right? And it's always about that. Have your answer, think about your answer, and then why. Why is that your answer? And have actual reasons so you can give an actual answer.
100%.
Yeah.
Who do you learn from or whatever? Yeah, it's this is a unbelievable exercise for kids to do.
It's important. It's actually important. It's not even just hockey. It's life. It's just important to be able to do this.
It's an exercise that kids need to do. I had a thought and I forgot what it was going to be.
Well, let me throw into you. The other thing I wanted to just touch on before we get wrapping up is, we kind of touched on it a bit, but maybe just to reiterate, if you're a coach or a parent, what you can do for your kids. So all this stuff is good for the kids. So if the kids have listened and can write these questions down and do it themselves, that's fine. But advice for maybe a coach or a parent, if they have a player in mind or their kid or whatever, what they can do for this.
A coach?
Either, whichever way you want to take it.
I think a coach has to care enough, right? Like,
but more practically, like, should they sit down and talk to them? Should they, like, how should they? Because for me, like, I'll give you more context. So for me, my parents didn't play sports. Mm-hmm. They had no idea about any of this stuff. So it would have been really helpful for someone to be like, hey, boys, like, this is going to be coming up. So, like, we should practice this. Or, like, here's some things you can do on your own to prepare yourself for this, if they were just hearing this information coming. Because I had no idea. If I would have been in the hot seat, like, I wouldn't have.
I got to be honest with you. As I'm saying it from most people probably don't understand how important this is.
Right.
And they'll probably give their kids shit after for I sound like a dummy. And I'm not being an asshole here.
Yeah.
That's kind of the way it goes.
Yeah, for sure. That's what I'm saying.
Like, I'm really careful with Charlie when I'm around that stuff. Like, he asked that after the first interview because I was in the car with him. And he said, how do you think that went, Dad? I almost made a mistake. I almost said, well, dude, you did good, but. And I almost said but, and I said, you did well. I said, you did well. That was your first interview. You did well. He goes, yeah, but what? I said, no. I said, you did really well. You answered those really well. I said, I mean, we'll think about it after, and we'll talk about maybe how you can expand on some things. Like, you didn't use PowerTech the way you probably could have enhanced that, right? Like your workouts and stuff. I said, but that's an experience, son. I said, you did really, really well. And the guy even told you, said you did a good interview. So, but I don't think I think mostly that's what happens is before the parents either overgirl them, like make it a really uncomfortable experience, and there's probably a pissing match with the kid and the parents, because this is delicate, and we have to understand that the kids are like insecure about this.
Oh, yeah.
And anytime mom and dad wants to help them with something, it's like you're picking on him. I'm never good enough, almost, right?
Yeah.
Like, you always make me do my homework. You're telling me to read. Yeah, but you see why now?
Yeah.
So anyways, as a coach and a parent together, I think most people actually don't understand, because you've never been in this situation, and you've never really been in the situation. Well, you have in jobs, but in the hockey world, a lot of people think you just play and you go to the next level, but it's actually a real serious business. People are going to invest if you are fortunate enough or you work hard enough to play in the OHL or get a scholarship or whatever it is. There's a lot of money that is invested in you as a person, a lot. They want to get the right type of person. So as a parent, what I would suggest you do is really help them with this. Like, hopefully you watch this podcast and you do one or two things. The kid and you can sit down and ask some questions. And guys, so the kids, your parents might ask you questions that you say, oh, come on, Dad, you're an idiot. Mom, shut up. But there actually could happen. My son's seeing it. He goes, oh, I didn't think that was coming. So try to have the patience with your parents to take the lesson or the exercise and do it the best you can. Parents, don't beat them up, because I know they're gonna say something. You're gonna say, well, you're not ready, or say this, say that. Like, let them do this a few times, and let them be themselves. And the other thing is, guys, you have a personality, let it show. Like, there's no right answer. Like Eric said earlier, it's like, how are you doing? I'm doing well, thank you. How are you? Like, just be yourself. And if you're a funny guy, be funny, and just do your best. the next most important thing is find someone that has been through this.
Yep.
And they got to care enough to take the time. So like us, if you get a hold of us, we'll try to make as much time as we can for this.
Yeah. Well,
it's important, guys.
Well, the parent thing too, that I was going to say, from the kid perspective, it's annoying. Like because I remember this, like when your parents try to give you a talk, like a serious talk about life or whatever, it's annoying.
Yeah.
So when you're a kid, just like try to take it on the chin a bit, and they're just trying to help you. That's the first thing. Then from the parent side of it, don't be annoying. So when it's going to be annoying, but just try to not be annoying. Don't be preaching to them. Like you're trying to help them along. Like, they're going to be nervous. They're going to give bad answers. They're not going to have thought it through yet. All of these things. They can't. They've never experienced it. Yeah. All that's coming. So if you're going to be the one to try to sit down and talk with them about it, then you're doing it together. You're on the same team. It's not I'm judging you. We're trying to work on this together to get you ready.
Yeah.
That's the attitude to go into it with. You're doing this as like a team effort, and don't solve their problems for them either. Like let them think about it. Let them come up with answers. Like, and then they'll be able to sharpen that up over time. Yeah. Let them go reflect on it in their own time, write things down on their own without you there, those types of things. And then if you're lucky enough that you have someone, like you said, to go to, that's probably the best thing, where it's like a third party, somebody that isn't directly involved in their life. It's a lot easier to deal with that from the kid perspective, where you're just kind of talking to somebody else about it than mom and dad. Yeah. That's what I think about it, at least.
Well, yesterday when we did the mock interview, this player you saw, he was sitting there going, basically thought he was like, oh my God, I don't have answers. But that was the point.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I told him. I said, no, dude, this is why we're doing this. And at the end of it, he was like so thankful. Like so thankful. It's one of the best things you can do for someone.
Well, because you don't realize how unprepared you are.
Right.
Because you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
You don't realize how much you're like, holy crap, like I've never thought of that ever.
No.
And that's an important thing, and that is what you're going. That is the point of it, and it's important to remember that this isn't the real interview. Like we're trying to prepare you for the real interview.
Yeah.
So don't get so discouraged by the fact that you don't have good answers.
Yeah.
To let it not like to keep you from preparing yourself now because you're just scared of it.
Yeah.
And that's a big thing that the parents can do, is make sure that is clear. Like this is important because someone's gonna ask you these kinds of questions. So let's work through the kinks now.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
When his dad last night goes, Andy, I can't even thank you enough. He just spent a couple hours with my kid to help him get through an interview. He goes, you gave him answers and ideas and thoughts. He goes, I don't even know what to say.
Well, and the thing too is if you just do it once, that's the other thing. Like just doing it the first time is enough to show everybody like what they don't know.
Yeah.
To get them on the right track.
Yeah.
And then nothing's as bad as the first time. The first one is the worst because you don't know what you don't know. Now you know. Now you know you have stuff you need to figure out. Yeah. And then you'll sit and spend some time on it, right? Which is important.
100%.
So it's good. We can probably wrap up now. Is there anything
we could ask 1,000 more questions, and it's not the idea is to get. What if they ask this? That's not the idea of this. The idea of this is like, okay, like just to wrap it up. Parents, let your kids know that you're there to help them. Maybe fire off some questions. Just little coaching cues, like if you're doing this, like speak loud, dress it decently. Not speak loud. Speak with a decent tone. Show some confidence, dress appropriately for the interview. And then the kids have a decent idea of your identity, like know what you play like, have reasons why you play like, have an identity of yourself so that you can fit that into all the different aspects of questions that are asked for you. Know where you want to go with this game. And, don't look for the perfect answer. Just answer things and give them reasons to believe in you. And like, I think the conclusion we came up with is they ask you questions, use those questions so that it can benefit you.
Yeah, that's huge.
Make you better.
Yeah.
Right.
And then the last thing I'll throw for the kids too, just another thing you can do to practice. I remember I did this when I practiced for interviews, is after you come up with some questions, whether you write these ones down and write down some answers or things you think about yourself, go in the mirror and practice some answers. Like go literally like watch yourself in the mirror and actually practice answering a question. Like, so who do you think you play like? ask yourself the question, and then actually say the answer out loud. Like try to
You could probably do that on video yourself, right? You video yourself?
Yeah, you can video yourself.
Yeah, that's probably the best way.
Whatever you want to. Yeah, actually.
Because if I look in the mirror at myself, I just go, geez, look at the No, seriously, I don't like the look of this guy.
Well, it's actually probably good. That's actually a better advice, because then you can listen to it back too and listen to how you answer.
That's probably the best way.
So that's probably a better idea. Video yourself doing it.
Because you might see yourself, like Charlie said, the first interview he had, he was nervous, right? He's Pitt State.
Oh yeah.
But he was like always speaking, and he was always going like, it was a nervous twitch during the interview. So he goes, I kept doing that. So
you can learn. That's actually another good point, is those little twitch things. Like, you stick your tongue out, or you itch your face, or I used to do some of that sometimes. I'd itch my face when I was giving some kind of
I used to sit there and just and then like the teacher would say, what are you doing? I'd be like, huh?
Oh, that's awesome, dude.
I'm not joking.
Oh man, funny.
So anyways, I truly hope as we're wrapping up, I truly hope this was beneficial. I truly hope that people take me up on the offer, that because I know this is a huge thing. Maybe I can help you with it, and I truly hope you do really well if you do have an interview. And parents, you're you got a big role to play here. It's really touchy on how you play that role. I know, because listen, my son has the utmost respect for me through hockey, through my business, and as a dad. And there was points when we were going through the interview where he just wanted to cut my head off.
Yep,
he did.
Yeah,
and I wasn't being over aggressive about it, because it's touching. You're literally forcing him to do something that is so uncomfortable.
Yeah, for sure.
This is your life if you're a hockey player. So,
yep.
Anyways, please, and I hope you enjoy this.
Yeah, awesome. If you guys have any follow-up questions, reach out. We will answer you.
Yep.
So it's good. Right on.
Duty.